Before the first word was spoken, before the first song took shape in the air, there was a music without sound. Not an absence, not a void, but a living, breathing fullness that required no instrument, no voice, no echo. We have forgotten this music, not because it is distant, but because it is too near. It waits not in some faraway realm, but at the very threshold of our awareness, so close that the noise of our own thinking drowns it out. Hazrat Inayat Khan once spoke of this soundless music as the ground from which all life arises, a symphony whose first note has no beginning and whose last note never ends. It is the sound beneath all sounds, the still pulse beneath all movement. And yet the ears cannot hear it. The mind cannot grasp it. When we think of listening, we think of tuning our ears to a melody, of catching the rhythm of a drum, the inflection of a voice. But the listening Khan invites us into is of another order entirely. It is not a matter of receiving vibrations. It is a matter of becoming still enough that the subtle resonance of being itself begins to reveal its presence. There is a difference between silence as emptiness and silence as presence. One is the barren aftermath of noise. The other is the origin, the womb of all possible sound. To enter the latter is to feel a current moving in stillness, to sense a depth that is not bound by time. This silence is not passive, it is alive with an unspeakable tone. The tragedy is that we are trained from birth to listen outward, to seek meaning in what is said, to interpret and judge the notes of life as they arrive. We cling to the surface and ignore the wellspring, but the most profound truths are not transmitted in syllables or chords. They are given in the quiet intervals between them. Rumi wrote of a reed flute whose song was the sound of separation, longing for its source. But beneath even the flute's lament is the silence from which both longing and fulfillment arise. It is in this underlying field that the essence of truth is heard, not by the ears, but by something in us that does not speak, that does not move, that does not need to be convinced. To find this place, one must listen with the whole being, the way a mountain listens to the wind, the way a lake listens to the falling snow. It is not a skill we acquire, but a recognition of what has always been here waiting. And perhaps this is why the sages have spoken of a kind of music that cannot be performed, only discovered. It is not the property of any culture, religion, or philosophy. It is the common inheritance of all who are willing to turn inward and be present without agenda. Yet to listen in this way is also to confront the most unsettling truth that in this silence there is no me and no world, only the unbroken hum of being itself. The familiar dissolves and we are left with something both terrifying and beautiful in its simplicity. How then does one cross from the noise of thought to this music without sound? That is where our journey begins to deepen, not with the acquisition of more, but with the quiet, almost imperceptible letting go. Letting go is not a movement the world teaches well. We are trained to hold, to grasp, to accumulate. Yet the music that Hazrat Inayat Khan points toward is not a song that comes to the hands of the collector. It comes to the one who has emptied them. It arrives not as an acquisition, but as a revealing. In the ancient Indian tradition, there is the idea of the anahata nada, the unstruck sound. It is a vibration that has no origin in the collision of objects, no cause in the friction of strings or skin or breath. It is the eternal resonance that exists before the world takes form and after the world falls silent. This is not metaphor alone. It is a direct experience, known to mystics and contemplatives across time, even if their languages for it differ. To hear this sound, one must go beyond hearing in the ordinary sense. Ordinary hearing is a taking in. It is the ear reaching outward, gathering impressions. But inner listening is not an act of taking. It is an act of surrender. It is the surrender of the restless urge to interpret, to label, to anchor ever perception in the map of the known. This surrender is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is the strength to stand unprotected before the vastness, to allow the boundaries of the self to become porous, to dissolve into what Meister Eckhart called the groundless ground of God. In that groundless place, the unstruck chord resounds, not as something apart from you, but as the very substance of your being. We often imagine that truth must come dressed in clarity, that enlightenment will arrive as a flood of perfect knowledge. But the truth found in this listening is not a sum of facts. It is a recognition of a deeper alignment, the sense that life's current is not something you are moving through, but something that is moving as you. The music of silence is not content to be understood. It longs to be lived. In this listening, even the smallest movements are transformed. The faint rustle of leaves becomes an expression of the infinite. The space between heartbeats becomes a cathedral. A bird's cry does not disturb the silence. It completes it. Noise and quiet cease to be opposites. They are revealed as differing textures of the same eternal fabric. The music Khan invites us toward is an awakening, not from sound into silence as a negation, but into the deeper silence that holds all sounds. It is an intimacy so complete that the idea of distance evaporates. And yet there is a cost. To hear in this way is to let go of the comfort of knowing who you are in the conventional sense. The roles, the stories, the familiar inner narration, they begin to thin and fall away. What remains is not an improved version of the self, but the absence of the self as you thought it to be. This absence is not bleak, it is freedom. But freedom is not always comfortable. When the scaffolding of thought is removed, the mind can feel naked, exposed. We are tempted to fill the space again, to reintroduce the noise. And yet, if one can stay, just stay,
the nakedness becomes a kind of transparency. Through it, the unstruck chord plays, and you realize it has been playing all along. Perhaps this is the most radical invitation of all, to live in such a way that every sound you hear, whether from the world outside or the depths within, is recognized as an expression of the same eternal note. But if this music is truly everywhere, why is it that so few hear it?
If the music is everywhere, why is it that so few hear it? Perhaps because it requires the listener to vanish. The melody does not tolerate the clamor of self-importance. It will not compete with the chatter of the mind. It plays only when the one who listens no longer stands apart from the listening. To hear the unstruck chord is to dissolve into it. It is to recognize that the silence is not a background to your life, but its very source. That the pulse you feel in your chest is not yours alone, but the beating of a cosmic heart. The river of soundless music flows through all beings, binding them not by chains, but by the seamless fabric of existence itself. And yet, most live as though this river were hidden underground. They drink from shallow wells of distraction, mistaking the surface for the whole. But there comes a moment, sometimes in grief, sometimes in joy, sometimes in the strange stillness between, when a crack opens in the ordinary, light seeps in, and in that light you hear it, the pure note that has never ceased, the song that existed before the first word was spoken. It is not that the world grows quiet, rather you become vast enough to hold both the roar of life and the stillness that cradles it. You become the ear of the universe, listening to itself. You discover that what you sought to hear has always been hearing you. Hazrat Inayat Khan taught that this music is the essence of divine communication, a language without words, understood by every soul that has forgotten its separateness. In that recognition, love ceases to be an emotion. It becomes the very air you breathe. Even the most fleeting moments, the shadow of a bird on the wall, the cool weight of evening settling on the earth, are invitations to remember. You begin to see that listening is not an act you perform, but a state you allow. The more you let go, the more clearly it sings. And in its singing, it names you, not with the fragile names of the world, but with the name you have carried since before your birth. It calls you back, not to some distant heaven, but to the center of your own being, where heaven has always been. In this place, the old boundaries fade. The distance between the listener and the listened to collapses. The prayer and the answer are the same breath. You realize that every sound, every voice, every rustle, every heartbeat is part of one infinite score, and that you are both the note and the silence between notes. And when you hear this, truly hear this, there is nothing left to seek. You become the listening itself. If these words have stirred something in you, a quiet recognition, then let it not end here. Let this conversation continue beyond this moment. Let your presence join ours, so that together we may keep listening for the music that never stops. Like this, share this, and let your own stillness become part of the song.